Welcome back, everyone. So, without further ado, in this session, let's get back to our codes and start where we left off. And also, some people ask me that when I click on these things, nothing happens. It's because I told you need to first unlock them on here. For example, you unlocked here and you can see there are two layers inside this, and you first, for example, you can unlock this one. So when you unlock it, you can have access to other layers, and you can see they're all unlocked. So the first thing that I want to fix is the font family. As you can see, I highlighted this, and if you highlight anything else on this page, as the font, you can see this is the font family that it's using. Poppins, yes, this is the one that it's using. So but look at the font of our text that we have here. It's completely different. The font size should be fixed, the font family should be fixed. So the first thing that we need to learn in CSS is something that called font family. And on font family, you specify the font that you are going to use. Usually in body, the first thing that you do is inside this body, you write font family, and you can choose the font family that you like. And for example, the font family is Poppins, but it has a problem. What I just wrote. Let's hit save and come here, hit refresh, and as you can see, nothing happens. It's because when I use this way of using font families, it only can go ahead and apply the fonts that I have installed. For example, if I open a Word document here for test, and let's create a blank document, and as you can see, let's write something called text, and as you can see, I have so many font families installed already. And if I use either of these, for example, let's go ahead and there's something called Calibri. There's something that I use a lot. This is Calibri font size. When I go back here on font family here and use Calibri, is there anything here in the suggestions here? I don't know. Calibri. Okay, this is it. Let's go back here and hit refresh, and as you can see, now the font family is being applied because I have installed that on my device. So as you can see, this is not a good way for writing font families, because what if some people is using some device that it's not that he hasn't installed Calibri or anything font size. So there's something that CSS3 introduced, and that is actually font face. In font face, what we do is we can go ahead and attach the font that we want, the font file. We download it and we attach it in our project. For example, here in this, I can create a new folder and call it fonts. Okay, and I can go ahead and download that Poppins for myself. This is it. Poppins is the font that it's being used in this. Here, download. We can download this Poppins, and in Google Fonts it's here, and we can use this Poppins. Let's first, now that we are here, let's first learn how to use Google in order to attach files. For example, as you can see, these are some styles of this font family that you can see. Poppins is the font family, and it has so many weights. There's something called font weight. It's also included in CSS. We can use it. As you can see, for example, font weight 100 is this. It's 100, 200, 200, 300, and it goes until to 900. Well, where 900 is the boldest possible. So we have something called font weight as well, but usually there are in three categories. First of all, light category, thin category, and regular, medium. As you can see, the regular and medium is being used a lot, and this is what I want to use. This, for example, I select this regular font. I chose the italic one, sorry, the italic one, and so we can use multiple things. For example, see, I am adding them and I can now remove them. So let's first just use this 400 that we have, and also semi-bold 600, and also this select bold, this 600. These are the three things I want to use. One way is actually to use link tag. You can copy these codes that are here and you can paste them inside your HTML and attach them. The other way is actually to use import tag. And this is the import tag that I am going to use, and you can have that inside your CSS file, and that's what we are going to do. So let's go ahead, and before even this route, this is pretty much because I want to first import everything, then define everything else. So these root, this import, they are all usually at the top of the document, these kind of things. And as you can see, this font has been included 400 weight, 600 weight, and 700 weight, and we have all of them. Now that we have all of them, let's go and in our body, let's use this pop-ins that instead of Calibri. And when you are inside this Google, it is telling you how to use this font family. For example, you can use them inside single quotes as well or double quotes as well, but usually it's recommended to use single quotes because whenever you use single quotes, you can freely put a space inside your names because it is recommended and it's a better way. So the font family is now Poppins. So what happens is I hit refresh. I now have access to that font family, and anyone else on the world also has access to this because whenever they open my web page, they download this, and then the font will be downloaded and it will be used in the browser. So if you are offline, for example, if you save this page, for example, like us, that we are using a index in the HTML, we are not connected to anything. It's a file document. So whenever you're offline, it will not work. But in a real world, since people are online and seeing our website, so they will 100% see this in the correct font family. But for us, where we are developing inside our file directory, so we have to make sure that we have access to internet because it needs to be downloaded. So one way was actually used to Google Fonts, and this is it. But what if we have a font and this font is not in Google Fonts or anything that we can use it like this? It's a file that someone has given us. For example, let's download them all so that we have a file, and I want to paste that inside these. Let's show in folder and cut this, hit Ctrl X to cut this, and go to desktop, open this folder, and inside this fonts, I did create a font folder. Where did that go? Oh, I hit it inside CSS folder, so I can go ahead and move it around wherever. I don't know why this drag and drop is so hard in this. So I can go ahead in CSS in fonts, I paste it here, and I hit Ctrl X to cut this fonts folder and hit Ctrl V so that I have it in my directory here. So this is fonts, and I can go ahead and show more options and extract here. And as you can see, there are a lot of let's delete this and this text document as well. As you can see, there are a lot of different fonts that are being included, but for now let's just use this Poppins medium. So if we are not going to use this in a import code, we can use it inside a font face. There's something called font face. I thought it has a shortcut. No, it doesn't have a shortcut. So it's the way that it is. You can use font. You need to hit the sign. You hit @ font face with this brackets here, and you need to put a name for this font that you are going to use. You can name it whatever you want. For example, you can name it John or anything that you want, but I'm going ahead and use the Poppins for this. And you need to now specify a URL in order to go and find that file and attach it. For example, from here, if we want to go inside this fonts folder, the first thing that we need to do is to go back one folder, for example. So the first thing that we need to use is this double dot slash. This double dot slash means go ahead and go inside the back folder, one back folder, and inside this back folder you can see we have CSS folders, we have fonts folders, anything. And inside this fonts folder you can see we have so many things, and we can use this, for example, this medium thing that we have. And again, for URL, try to use single quotes, because if you have any space, inside this parentheses, if you have any space, so that you feel free to use anything, because if you have a space, for example, let's go here, it's using dash here, but if it was Poppins space medium, we had a syntax error and it will fail. So we have to use these single quotes to make sure that don't worry about the path that we have. Okay, so let's go ahead and use this single quote here, and now we can use this font. And if we go again and hit refresh, and now this is still okay, completely fine, because now the users can have access to that font, because this font face will go ahead and download this from this URL that we are specifying, and the web browser will use this font without considering that and without worrying about if user has installed this font or not. But I go ahead and comment this, so that you have access to these codes when you download these codes in your project. So you have the syntax here, but so I will put that there. But I'm gonna use this because when I use this, my project won't go heavy, because look at this, how many files are inside this, and you are going to have you are able to download any session from this. So if we are going to repeat these fonts folder in every folder of every session, it goes a little heavy. So that's why I use this instead of that. But I leave this syntax for you in case if you wanted to use an internal path for your font. So the first important thing that we need to be aware of is this inherit thing that I just mentioned at the end of this video. So if you go inside w3schools.com for example, any CSS properties, what we have here is with something called border radius. For every CSS property on W3 Schools, there are some values, some info about that CSS property. For example, all of them have a default value. For example, for border radius, the default value is 0. For justify content is something else. For align items is a scratch. For anything. And therefore, all of them something called inherited. For example, for border radius is no, because when we assign border radius to a div, the items inside that will not have inherit that border radius from the div. But if we select a div and assign a color, for example red, everything else inside that div tag, for example if you have a p inside that div tag, that p will inherit that red color from the parent div. So something like color is inheritable, but something like border radius is not. So that's why it says it's not inherited, this border radius. And something is animatable that we will learn. Animatable is something that is specifying that whether CSS animations will be applied on this border radius, and which says yes. For example, we'll learn that we can, for example, change the border radius of something from 10 pixel to 50 pixels, okay? But this change from 10 pixel to 50 pixel could be with an animation. So let's like an animation slowly change from 10 pixel to 50 pixels. So that's what it means by animatable, which we will see, and which version is being introduced, and this is for JavaScript, which we do not need for now. But this is something that is inside any W3 school document. So, and in new CSS properties, we just learned font family, that's all we'll learn. But we'll also learn two new syntaxes. For one, importing from a URL, and second one is to import from an internal path. So that's it. Hope to see you in next session.